Hello, everybody, and welcome. So today, hold on a minute, I need to put this here, sorry. So today, it is podcast day, so welcome. Hello, Mablack.
Hey, good to be here. It's our third podcast. CWA, Competitive Worms Armageddon. Apparently there's some other CWA podcasts like Christian Women's Association. I don't know. Some other one.
You gave that some real thought. So yeah, hello everybody. Oh, sorry, what's that?
Oh no, yeah, I saw it and I was like, well, this is weird. It's like two other CWA podcasts.
So we're here, it's official, and today's star of the show is Dario, the one and only Dario. So, as usual, we'll take you through the first section, which is just news about the competitive scene in Worms Armageddon, and then, as usual, we'll show you some tutorials from Mablack and myself. So, yeah, hope you're all having a good evening, and let's get on with it. So, some news today from April of 2024. We'll start with the cups. So in the Trio 17 Cup, we have the first finalist, which is Lupastic. He's waiting on the quarter-final between Free and Blitzed to see who plays Mega Adnan in the semi-final. The NRB and GK Cup, we're now in the first stages of the final bracket. Baffle versus Rocket, and the winner will go straight to the grand final. The loser will play the bronze match to decide who gets to the grand final from the losers bracket. The other players are the Walrus versus Ollie and Wolfgang versus Senator. So I think it'll be the winner, the Walrus and Ollie, and Wolfgang versus Senator. The winner of those two will play each other, and then the losers are out, as far as I'm aware. The Renaissance of Roping, there's only a couple of days to go until the playoffs, and so far most of the games have been played. I think there's only 4 more games left to play. The only player who hasn't played yet is Free, but all the groups are ready to proceed, as in the scores that they've got. There's no tiebreakers or anything. The Fruity Massacre Banana Show 2024 Cup, the first finalist is Mega Adnan after he beat Old Sock in the semi-final. The other semi-finalists are Rocket versus Godmax. The Defaults Jam Cup is now in the playoff stage with 4 players. Free versus the Walrus and Lupastic versus Coridex for the semi-finals. And that's it for cups. So challenges. TRC number 10 hosted by Kirill 470. Walrus got first, Danger 135 second, and Lupastic third. The NDSC number 40, which is a darts challenge, that stands for New DS Challenge. Triad got first there with 114 out of 120. Stack it second with 105 out of 120. And Danger 135 third with 93 out of 120. The TTRR Challenge Week 331 hosted by Triad. Stack It got first, Rocket second, and Old Sock third. Pretty close scores, 42.78, 42.9 and 47.36. The Boom Race Challenge Week 5 hosted by Kirill. Gabriel wins that one again. He is just amazing at Boom Race, to be honest. He got 73.3. In second place was the Walrus with 116.32. So you can see just how far ahead Gabriel is, and it's a great replay. You should go and watch that. We've actually got one of his clips in the highlight footage coming up, and Lepastic got third with 137.8. The Big Rope Race Challenge Series 20 hosted by Kirill. Stackit got first with 159.66, Rocket second with 160.96, and Sock third with 164.76. So that one was a lot closer. The NDSC number 41, Triad got first with so close to a perfect game, 70 out of 72. Stack It second with 62 out of 72, and Danger third with 47 out of 72. The TTRR Challenge Week 332 hosted by Kirill. Stackit got first with 25.72, Sock second with 25.86, and Gabriel third with 26.8. So that was like pretty much a second between all three players there. Great challenge that. Jetpack Race Challenge Week 12 hosted by Kirill. Gabriel takes that again with 68.1, Lupastic second with 81.38, and SSM third with 93.36. So we're going to move on to ONL now, just to give you a quick update on the only normal league, which is the intermediate based league. And the new season started on April the 2nd this month, and that will end on July the 1st, 2024. And currently the top four are Rafka with 7 games won, no losses. Iray is second with 6 games won, no losses. Gouffron is in third with 9 games won and 6 losses. And then Perdunok is in fourth with 4 games won and 6 losses. And then 58th is Epe, Panzerman, Solanio, and Old Sock. There are 11 players who have played so far. The other 3 are Igor, Sid, and Cillian. I haven't heard of Cillian before, but seems to be a decent player. So yeah, let's get caught up with the TUS singles quickly. So Old Sock won the TUS all-round playoffs for season 26 after beating Dead Code in the semi-final and Camper in the grand final. So congratulations to Old Sock, the season 26 all-round champ. For season 27, we have Blitzed versus Free in the grand final, and that match is yet to be organised. For season 28, we're still in the semi-finals with Blitzed versus Walrus and Free versus Baffle. And now the current standings for season 29, just need to check. So we've got 18 days left and 22 hours, so pretty much 19 days left. You've got Blitzed number 1, Walrus number 2, Lupastic number 3, Wolfgang number 4, then Camper, Free, Sensi, Yago in the top 8 so far. So that's how that's looking. We don't have an announcement on the playoffs yet because we get that at the end of the season. Only 3 players actually have met the criteria. Lupastic. How come Lupastic isn't in the playoffs? He should be, but I think he's opted out. So, yeah. Anyway, TUS Clanners. TDC for season 28, TDC the Deadly Clan beat MV Mad Villains in the semi-finals, and they are now waiting on ICB in Cold Blood versus STF Supremo Tribunal Federano, I think it is. And we've yet to play our semi-final. We're waiting on Kalu coming back. TTL, which is TUS Team 17 leagues. For the playoffs for Season 7, KRD beat Senator in the semi-final. That was a great match that was streamed on Dead Code's channel. And he's just waiting on the other semi-final, Dead Code versus Chicken. And that's all the news we have for TTL. We're waiting on Season 8 being activated. So one last part before we go over to Mablack for the Chaos League. We have the TUS Rotated League. 4 days left, or actually it's less now, it's 1, 2. So 2 days left of the first multi-TRL season. We do actually have legitimate playoffs already with 4 players. But it looks like we're actually going to be doing an 8-player playoff, which is going to be amazing because I haven't seen an 8-player playoff for any league for a very, very, very long time. So that'll be pretty good. Now, season 33 for the multi-TRL season will begin on the 1st of May, which is in 3 days. And the voting is still active to decide the schemes that will be used, but basically how TRL works is you have 3 categories of schemes. You've got artillery, physical, and strategic. So the schemes for artillery are B and G, and there's two variants: the TUS scheme with no rules, and a no rules variant that I uploaded for the NRB and GK Cup scheme. We've got Boom Race, Hysteria, and Marcosteria. So those are the artillery. For physical, we have darts, Get Frank, which I need to actually see what that's all about, because it sounds interesting, and the Walrus and Peja make it sound very interesting. Mine Madness, Roper, Super Sheeper, and Czar. So that are your 6 choices for next season's physical. And for strategic, one that Dario would actually appreciate, we have 80 HP, Abnormal, Intermediate, Chaos, One of Everything, and Teleporting. And that is all the schemes that you'll see a variation of those schemes in next season, one of each of those for each category. So, and a really good announcement for next season of TRL, the prize pool has been doubled. So TRL is now being sponsored via this Twitch channel by a player from Worms who is asked not to be named, but
mysterious benefactor.
Exactly. Via their business, they are going to add another £100 to the prize pool for season 33, which brings it to £200 in return for some advertisements that we'll be doing during the TRL streams. And the profits for those adverts go directly towards prize pool money, so I don't make any profit for it. So I wouldn't ever sell out for myself, but quite happy to do some adverts if it means a bigger prize pool for you guys. Also, depending on the outcome of the vote, Triad might be adding another £100 to the prize pool, so we could potentially see a £300 prize pool. And if we do get a free player prize pool, it will be £150 for first place, £100 for second place, and £50 for third place. And if it's 200, it'll be 100 for first, 70 for second, and 30 for third. So yeah, you've got 5 minutes, my black. So yeah, over to you for some Chaos League news.
All right. Always good to hear about money in the game. Incentivizing people. So for Chaos League, let's go over to that. So at chaosleague.com, that's KAOS, we got... And if you're able to display that screenshot, yeah. So we got Master is in first in the league. So he's been killing it. Case has been equally killing it. Basically, the top 3 all have 20 wins. And this has been over the course of like a handful of months. We basically play every other player in the league, and we do it twice. So it's a big old round robin. It's like super fair. And yeah, it's kind of crazy how close the top 3 are. And then me coming in fourth with 15 wins, Yago 15 wins. Dream is at 13, and I don't think we have too many matches left in the season. I could see Dream rising up a little bit more. Then we have Mega Adnan at 11 victories, Winkat at 8, Lack at 7, St. Jimmy and Hal both at 6, Staney at 5, and Oldsock at 1 victory. Although I have to note again, this is an insanely competitive league, because like Oldsock is a really good player. It's just like everyone here has been playing Chaos so long. And yeah, if we look at the average performance, so this is just kind of a rating. It kind of takes into account things like collecting crates, stuff like that. It's a bit of a subjective scale, but we got K's is actually first in his average performance per game. He's really killing it. I think he collects more crates than anybody else. He just has a crate collection rate that's crazy. And some people would say that's like the main determiner of like how you be good at Chaos. Like, can you win and get the most crates? I mean, that sounds simple, but it's not. Let's see. Yeah, and also in terms of rounds 1, top 3 players are all like neck and neck. Master and K's both have 64 rounds. AbeGod has 66. Then me and Yago are a bit behind, 49 and 53. And yeah, it's kind of strange because like there can be just a really big difference in like rounds one, because chaos matches are typically first to 3 wins. Then during playoffs, it can be first to like 7, or yeah, it can be first to like 4 wins. So yeah, it's just there's so many games that can be played. There's so many different ways to play the game. You can go for that 3-0 win, play a little more risky. You can play safer, stock up your weapons, maybe throw around here or there, and then you have like a 3-2 win. It's there's a lot of variation in how people play. Oh, we got 2 minutes? Okay. Okay. And let's see. For the cup, the Chaos Cup has kind of just started. Typically have 2 cups per season. And there we're just at the group stage. We're just kind of at the beginning stage here. As far as like crazy, we haven't had like too many like crazy neck and neck matches so far in the cup. Had Mega Adnan versus St. Jimmy was 3-2. That was a close one. St. Jimmy versus Lack Lack. He won 3-2, also close. And let's see, we recently had Master 3-0 versus St. Jimmy in Group A. And in Group B, we had Hal 9000 had a 3-2 game versus Silver. G had a 3-0 game versus Silver. And ABGOD had a 3-0 game versus Silver. Also, that's one of the newer players to the league. And Group C, not too many matches so far. Danny had a 3-0 match versus Old Sock. Dream had a 3-1 match versus Sock. I had a 3-0 match versus Sock. Dream had a 3-1 match versus Danny. And Group D, so far Yago and Case have both had 3-0 matches versus Metonator. I always have trouble pronouncing his name. But
Metonator, yeah.
Cup is shaping up, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. It's going to be tough between me and Dream in Group C. It's pretty likely Master and ABGOD will get top of their groups, but I'd like to see some upsets. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, thanks, Ma Black. It's really nice to see other players giving Kays a run for his money now. That's very interesting. I am personally going to be looking forward to tuning in for the playoffs, maybe even streaming that together with Dream, or being a commentator there. That'll be fun. So, moving on, until the interview, we're going to show you some pre-made tutorials, highlight footage, and replay analysis. So, we're going to show some nice shots done from this month of April, so various highlight footage from various events, from challenges and cups to Chaos League, etc. So yeah, hope you enjoy this, and we'll see you soon for the interview.
Very good idea. I say, be a good chap. Hurry up, would you? Awful business, what? Yes, sir.
report. Time identical. Target in sight. Resistance is futile.
Well said, my lord. No! Time eludes us.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what.
What are you, nuts? What are you, nuts?
I am the man. Oh no!
Many moves have passed since the worms went to war. Onwards and upwards, bigger weapons than before. OEB drew cover, he shivered on patrol. The arms raced crazy, simply way out of control. Then his friend threw it, the latest device. OEB went and got it, against all advice. His tail was split, and his energy lost. How many more will this dreaded war cost? Then came the nuke, and the disease tumbled down. If the bug didn't get you, you'd probably drown. But the worms battled on, through hunger and pain, living to fight, just to victor again. And now it's the curtain call, the final onslaught. No better bullet could you possibly have fought. But spare a thought for Bogey, and with it his friend. So fight with their honor, and fight until the end.
Hello, welcome to the power roping tutorial. In this video, you will watch how to do the more advanced and powerful versions of several solo rope tricks. Some of us call them power moves on account of being a more powerful variant of each trick, in the sense that they generate more power and can travel further faster. The 7 solo tricks you will learn how to use the power variant of are as follows. You've got the fling, the kick, the outlaw, the pump, scrolling, the spike, and the swoosh. So for those of you looking to take your rope skills to the next level, let's do it. A fling is when you throw your worm up and over an object. For example, a fling and a shadow are 2 separate tricks. However, when you combine them by doing a fling into a shadow fluently, it's called a dragon. The power variant of a fling is when you hold both the direction you're about to travel, in this case the left arrow and up arrow together, until you release the rope. If you time the release right, you'll get a more powerful throw, meaning you will travel further, faster, and cover more distance. A kick is when you're connected to the ceiling and bounce the worm off the ceiling, then release the rope after the bounce, throwing the worm horizontally. A power kick is when you hold both the direction you're travelling, in this case the right arrow, and up arrow together until you release the rope. You can also do this with double and triple kicks too. An outlaw is like a vertical kick, but it goes down. A power outlaw is when you hold both the up and directional arrows until releasing the rope. A pump is like a vertical triple kick that goes up. A power pump is when you hold both the up and directional arrows until releasing the rope. With precise timing, you can pump straight up for climbs or release a split second earlier to launch the worm more outwards. Scrolling is when you rope one side to the other from the ceiling. Power scrolling is when you hold both the up and directional arrows while scrolling to get maximum momentum. A spike is when you release the rope right after bouncing your worm off the roof and go down. A power spike is when you hold both the up and directional arrows together while doing so. An extended power spike is when you connect to the vertical wall instead of the horizontal ceiling. A swoosh is when you connect to the top of land and then extend over and drop downwards. A power swoosh is when you do it holding both the directional and up arrows together. And that's your power roping tutorial. Hope you've enjoyed it.
Mission 1, pumpkin problems. And no, not those ones. For this mission, we just have one worm, and it looks like we're up against a lot of worms, but we don't have to kill any of them. We can just safely ignore these guys. So our only goal is to collect the crate in the lower right side of the map, and we're armed with shotguns, Uzis, skirters, and ninja rope, and the only thing we actually need is ninja rope. So we can start off with just sort of the easiest method that I think is maybe the quickest to learn. So we just start by doing a forward jump, enter, and aim up a little bit, do another forward jump. You want to sort of aim for the top of that pumpkin and just fire the rope in midair. So grapple your way over. And if you're new to Worms Armageddon, so a lot of times people pull in the rope a bit too far and they get kind of like caught here. So don't hold up all the way until you're like pressed up against the pumpkin. Give yourself some leeway and stop like right here. Then as you sort of, gain some momentum and get over, then you can right here extend, so press down. And so basically you want to aim yourself for this mine that's right there. And you have so much health, you're not going to die. So this creates a hole straight to the crate. The CPU is not going to attack you or do anything, so you don't even have to worry about it. Second rope, just shoot it, extend to the crate, drop off the rope, and you're done. So this is the easiest method. And it's worth noting that sometimes when you do this, you can actually land either right on the crate or almost right on it. So it can be a very fast method. So in this case, we almost get onto the crate. All we have to do is just a backflip, and the mission's over. And so now I want to look at sort of a more intermediate level strategy that maybe isn't 100% unless you've practiced your roping a bit. So for this method, we're kind of doing the same thing at the start. We're just jumping forward once, and we're just rounding the corner here. So at this part, though, we're going to actually sort of bump ourselves over to that green vine, and we're going to launch ourselves over the mine softly so that we don't actually go high enough to take fall damage, and we keep our turn. So one way to do this here, you kind of want to have the same routine every time. So I just kind of aim myself at the crate, and I'm just extending softly. So as I hit the pumpkin here, all I'm holding is down. I'm not holding left or right. So that makes it sort of a soft bump. And we keep going. So you're just extending with down here, basically. And up until this point, I just start holding left right about here. And that gives me just enough power to do a very soft launch. So then we do a backflip, attach the rope again to that green vine. And at this stage right here, so since your rope is really at its limit, what you want to do is make sure to release right about here. And you're coming in at sort of an awkward angle, but you have, as long as you don't go perfectly horizontal, that's going to be too far. You want it to be a little bit before your rope is hanging like vertically down. You'll be able to attach to that green part, shoot another rope, and try to extend into the crate and grab it. This is actually going to be the fastest method that's also consistent, and it's just a little bit faster than the other method. I think by a handful of seconds. It depends on how efficiently you do it. Today is the greatest day I've ever flown over these pumpkins, grabbing that crate. So yeah, what we just saw is the fastest way to do mission 1, and as you can expect, it's really, really hard. This is called doing a Mexican flip, or a Mexi. So what happens is you release at a sideways angle, and that basically means that your rope is going to shoot out at the maximum possible angle. So when you make it over this final pumpkin, you just have to time that final rope to attach, collect the crate, and then finish the mission. Now, the way I just did it is really, really hard. I didn't have any setup. I just kind of went for it. And that is not a good repeatable way to do this one. If you really want to attempt this strategy, let's go over how to actually do it. But keep in mind, this is not recommended, especially if you're just starting the run. This is at most going to save you like 10 seconds off your whole run. And that's not very much. This is really one of the last strategies you even want to mess with, but hey, it's fun to do. It's fun to practice, and it might even make you better at roping. Okay, the secret of making the big Mexi strategy repeatable is that we're going to launch our rope from the same spot every time, and once we're at that spot, just hold up and right until we actually do the fling. So we just forward jump, once to the right, face left, forward jump, face right, forward jump. And we're actually going to use these little background lines called gradient lines to aim our rope. So if you press insert as many times as you need to make it black, you can just press it 2 more times. we're going to aim our rope until it's above this gradient line that's right by our aimer. And we're looking at the left nub of the crosshair. So it's going to be just above the aimer, like so. So we're not quite at the right spot. One thing about the crosshair is that the actual pixels of it, so the sprite, it changes every 2 angles. And remember that in this game, there are discrete angles, so there's a limited number of angles you can aim at. So we just want to go 1 up from here, and as we do that, it's going to change its visual appearance. So we're going to get a sprite change. I went a little too far, so I just went down 1. So you'll notice that the nubs are a little beefier at this position, and it's just above that gradient line. So now that we're in the right position, all we have to do is hold space, hold up and right, and we can just fling ourselves at the right time. And we just collect the crate, and we're done. So you'll notice that the timing at the end of that, it's right as the worm has passed that mine, or is roughly in level with the mine, and that's going to get you a good timing. Luckily, we can make this method safer if we use pause buffering. So pause buffering just means we're going to pause it right when we do the fling, see if our worm's in the right position, and if they're not, we can just use method 1 or 2. So let's try it. And looking at my worm, so it is actually in the right position, and I have 2 ways of telling. So the first way is that my worm's head has crossed that gradient line that we can see here. The other way is to look at the blinking rope icon next to the worm, and if the bottom of that is perfectly in line with the bottom of the oil drum, you're good. If it's a few pixels below, you're good. If it's a little more than that, then you're probably not going to get it, but there's a chance. And if it's a little above the bottom of the oil drum, there is a chance, but you're not very likely going to get it. So from this point, all I have to do is hold space up, right, and then just press escape. And that's it for mission 1. As a reminder, when you started the mission, you should have pressed tab 3 times and then space to enter the mission. And as the screen fades to black, as you finish the mission, just press Alt F4 to do fade skip, then mash space to get on to the next mission. Mission 2, Operation Market Garden. For this mission, we actually want to start on the 2nd attempt, just due to some of the RNG we get. If you've already beaten the missions and you're just able to cycle through them, just press tab 5 times and that'll get you selected on the start mission button. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, space. And once you're in the game, you can just press Alt F4 and then mash space again to get to the 2nd attempt. Or, let's say you're coming from mission 1, you just completed pumpkin problems. To start that one, you should have pressed tab 3 times and then space. And from then on out, for the rest of the missions, your spacebar will automatically hit start mission. Now, this mission used to be a tangled mess of different routes we would have to memorize depending on what the CPUs did. They might hit themselves, they might hit us. They were playing adult slow-pitch softball while drinking mojitos, and we were expected to clean up the mess. But no more. We finally found a route that is perfectly guaranteed every time you do it. There's no RNG whatsoever. You just have to execute the first 2 turns at the very start of the turn, and you'll get through it golden every time. And it's also really fast. So this mission is a kill 'em all. We just got to kill all 4 worms in the center of the map. And we have grenades, shotguns, fire punches, blowtorches, and girders. We're just going to use grenades. So for turn 1, what we do is we immediately hold down 5 and space, and we do a full power shot, and then right after that, before the grenade hits us, we have to back hop. So just mash enter, basically. You only need to press it twice, but it's good to just mash it. We face left, so do the slightest nudge left you can, then back hop again. That's going to send us over here, and that may seem pretty strange. Why are we sending a worm over here instead of like actually attacking these guys? It's going to set something really good up for turn 2. So, since Worms Armageddon is a deterministic game, if you do the same inputs every time, you're going to get the same outputs every time. So they're going to do that shot every time. Okay, what the hell did I just do on turn 2? So, before the turn started, I held up F7 and space, and that just did an upwards blowtorch. Okay, so the moment you hear the blowtorch, you also want to hold right. So just add right to the mix. So you're holding down 4 buttons. You can let go of F7 space and up at any point. And you hold right, you retreat like so. Just keep holding right till the end of your turn. And here's what we're after. This sentry is going to do this shot every time. So he just makes a gigantic pile, and obviously we're going to kill these guys now. So for turn 3, we want a 4-second grenade. We have to get it to a pixel precise spot, so we're using a terrain marker now, looking at where the crosshair lines up with the background terrain. So see how the crosshair is divided into 4 sections? You want to just kind of keep going up until you see just a little bit of the background color in those upper 2 sections. So we see just a little bit of the background appear as we're going from bottom to top, and we know this is the right angle. So we just do a full power shot again. And it's always going to land here. And we kill them all with only 2 grave animations. That part's pretty important. The more grave animations you have, the slower it is. So 2 is really the bare minimum we can get. So I don't know if there's a better shot than that, but it couldn't possibly be much better if there is. So that's the mission. Once it starts to fade to black, also make sure to press Alt F4, fade skip onto the next mission, then you can just mash space for mission 3. And one other thing about this mission is we do have a method for doing the first attempt and not just the second attempt. So what we just learned is the method that works for all attempts after attempt number 2 and beyond. So if you want to know how to do the first attempt, I would say just check out the Worms Armageddon document. There's a link below just for the whole speedrun that Ruffled Bricks has very helpfully compiled, and that whole thing details just all the missions in text format. It's amazing. Alright, so we're going to be looking at a clanner between 2 great clans. We have ICB, Komedo, and Old Sock, and then we have STF, Camper, and Koru Jiao. So this is TUS clanner. The scheme is Elite, and this just happened last week. So we have kind of an anthill map here, really complex map. These ones offer a lot of hides to people, although I do have my issues with them. And I'm just going to kind of analyze the moves, point out what's good, what's bad, in my opinion. So those first worms in Elite, it's really important to place worms on top if you can, so that you can kind of choose if you want to go left or right. And that first worm has a lot of mobility options. It can go left, it can go right. You can choose which side of the map you want to dominate, and it's good to dominate one side and have a lot of worms on one side, and maybe 1 or 2 worms invading your opponent's territory.
Very good idea.
And of course, the second worm you place, that's when Skunk becomes available, and that's a hugely important weapon. So you'll see these blue worms on the left and right. So these worms are like Skunk opportunity worms. Since Skunk shoots its poisonous gas upwards, those are always good positions to potentially get a free Skunk in on the opponent. Okay, and so Komedo did an axe. You always want to do like, at least 50 damage if you can. There wasn't really a way to kill on that turn. As for piling that worm, I think I would probably go with not piling, just because we have this worm Peggy. So Peggy can potentially get a kill, or this worm can actually get a kill on that 50 worm that just went. which I think could be good, but you would have to be
That's just peachy.
careful if you did that, because you'd have 2 green worms sort of in the same area. This is kind of a classic trade 50 damage scenario where worms just keep doing 50 damage to each other. It's kind of like trading chess pieces, so you can kind of see the end result of this. If we're just focusing on these 4 worms that have been attacking each other, it's basically whoever goes first, they're going to be the ones to get that first kill. So if you go second in this chain of just like trading 50 damage back and forth,
Dash bad luck, old boy.
you're going to want to have a plan to maybe use worm advantage. In this case, we are blocking. That's going to at least keep things open for blue. Okay. And so notice this block. So they could have just blocked Gaz in, but the reason for this block was because Peggy was up next, so we want to make sure that both Gaz and Peggy can't get to that worm. It kind of sucks though, because Shikamaru is totally trapped there.
Very good idea.
There's kind of no choice. And so here, it's a little questionable as to whether Skunk would work. And this jump is quite difficult, if it's even possible.
I say, big chaffin, hurry up, will you?
So yeah, getting out to attack Johnny would be hard. If you could get a sheep into that hole, though, that would be pretty dope. You just wouldn't really have a good hide. Okay, so this worm is just making sure that Hank can't be killed. That's pretty important. I mean, this worm could consider using a rope literally just to phase through that Hank worm and then get a shotgun kill. That wouldn't be a terrible move. Okay, so this worm has the option of either attacking, knowing it will die later, or teleporting. That could be a time to retreat.
That's just peachy.
I think it would make sense to retreat there, potentially. One thing you could do is retreat under Kakashi. Then that worm just has constant skunk pressure on him.
I say, big chaffin, hurry up, would you?
But Kakashi is in enemy territory. He's in the green zone. So he has the potential to teleport at any time. If things start to not go his way, or their way for STF. That's the thing about these invader worms. So, like, you can always hedge your bets. If you think that, if you think that things are not going to go well, or if you're going to get ganged up on by, like, multiple worms in a row, you can always just teleport away. Be safe. Now, over here, this is actually a really good way to connect two worms. So, like, if you have nothing to do, you want to think, like, can I improve my hide? Can I create a, a double exit torch hole? Speaking of which, that's what Peggy did over here. That makes it so that this worm can't be blocked by, like, Kakashi. It's always a good thing to do. Okay, so this was an interesting grenade. It actually worked out surprisingly well, even though it killed their own worms. It prevented them from having a way up. So that it was pretty hard to tell that it would land exactly there, but that tends to work out pretty well for green, because now there's two blue worms over there. They would have to use a rope to get up. They're pretty vulnerable to, like, skunk or anything. So ultimately, that's a pretty good trade. Petrol would also be a possibility. Petrol will be a good way to make sure those blue worms don't get back up anytime soon. And this worm only has 29 health, so that's a definite retreat moment for sure. if that worm tries to stay and fight, it will die in like literally a turn. So both players are in an interesting position. So you'll notice that both players have taken their sides, blue on the left, green on the right. Once again, blue is STF, green is ICB. Insane Clown Bussy. That's what I'm going with. Ooh, so Peggy uses a rope here. This is pretty important. Yeah, I would probably use a rope here. So this is what you're doing here is basically sacrificing your worm. So even though it's 100 worm, it's pretty likely it's going to take 2 turns to kill it. And that skunk was pretty well placed. But that's basically 2 worms down. So remember, a skunk is incredibly powerful in Elite. So the worms that it kills, like, there's plenty of turns in Elite. So, like, those worms are going to get down to 1 health in pretty much no time. I would almost consider using a rope to kill Peggy. And the reason for that is pretty much just so that, because like these worms don't have much time left. So they can't be spending too much time dealing with Peggy there. Although that is a bit aggressive. I mean, typically you want to save as many ropes as you can, and you only have 2 ropes in this scheme. Right, homing missile, it's a little bit difficult. I would, it's a little easier to aim it if you aim a little more straight up. I would just put that X a bit to the left of the worm and aim straight up. I mean, almost straight up. You can't aim like straight up. This is potentially another reason to have just made sure this worm died, because now it can do quite a bit of damage. And going for the healthiest worm, definitely the smart play. And it was only a Zook, but I mean, that's that matters, because like now this worm can be killed in 1 turn instead of 2. So you can kind of see how effective the skunk is. Like, things are really looking bad for blue. Like, just imagine those poison worms having 1 health. Like, that's how powerful the skunk is. But, yeah, in this situation, so this worm definitely needs to get to safety. I would be worried about Johnny, though. Like, if blue really wanted to, they could do a crazy super sheep into the gap. Johnny could actually die from that. It would be a slightly wild card move, but if you pulled it off, then the game is now like in your favor. At the same time, I really think that yeah, green could actually use super sheep on that turn to kill Kakashi, and that would also be a totally valid move. Also a lot easier to do than killing Johnny with super sheep. If they did do that, I don't think it's actually that hard to get a super sheep into that little gap. Like, if you find that you didn't aim it right, you can just kind of do some swoops, re-aim it. Napalm to kill that worm. I think that worm maybe just needed to be, like, protected with girder. Though I'm not keeping track of girders here. Is blue out of girders? Oh, they're out of girders. So yeah, things look quite bad for STF. I would still be tempted by that super sheep move to kill Johnny, just as like one of the only ways to stay in it. And yeah, just to be safe, Girder. Oh no, he's protecting himself from napalm. That's fine too, honestly. There was a turn earlier where Gaz potentially could have been killed by napalm. Okay, now this teleport is maybe a little bit strange. I think you do have time with that worm to get to the right, crawl through that little area, and potentially do a skunk. At this point, it's getting a bit like too little, too late, though.
Very good idea.
And you could also hope that Johnny remains like killable with like a sheep or something.
I say, be a good chap.
So if you have just one healthy worm and one poisoned worm, you really got to keep your healthy worm safe. So
I seem to have had a little accident.
yeah, I just keep eyeing that super sheep. It's just like STF has got to feel like, I don't know. Sometimes you got to even things up. Even if it's not like super likely.
Time critical.
So yeah, I think if STF's plan here, this sort of underground plan to either skunk or do damage to Johnny, I suppose this worm could focus on that while Kakashi focuses on, I don't know, either holding Gaz back with like petrol or trying to kill Gaz. Let's see what their plan is. Is it skunk? Oh wow, that was really bad luck. The fact that it just went straight through there. Yeah, that's rough. They did a pretty good job. Yeah, if they could just have gotten that in the torch hole, it would have been a sure thing. Let me just double check. They still had sheep. Getting sheep into that hole would also be pretty good.
Mustache. Ow. Ow. What
So yeah, this was the correct move, definitely, by ICB. So even though that was their last rope, that's definitely worth it, because if you only have one hit left on this final worm, you can get that with just about anything. You can get that with Super Sheep, potentially BNG. But here we have turn advantage, so since green has 2 worms, this worm can freely attack the worm that just went, Johnny, and they'll still be able to attack again next turn. But now might be the time for, let's see. This could be a little hasty. I'd probably get this worm a bit more to the left, just in case the airstrike doesn't kill. But it was well aimed, and it looks like that is GG.
Insufficient determination.
Yeah, both sides had some good moves there, I would say. I think they both played pretty well. There was that honestly, that one key BNG shot changed things quite a bit, where green actually killed their own worm along with one of the blue worms. It just changed things positionally so much. So I think that was a pretty good moment, and yeah, both players had a chance there. So I think that's GG.
Right, hello everybody and welcome back. We hope you enjoyed the videos there. And it is that time. What time is it, Mablik?
It's CWA time, the Christian Women's Wrestling Association.
So if you're curious what's about to happen, here's a clue. So here we have the one and only Dario. Hello, Dario. Welcome.
Yeah. Well, hi. Nice to see you all again after such a long time, isn't it?
Yes, always good
Yeah,
to
you-
see a legend.
Yeah. So
I
yeah, Dario
almost 11,
is
but okay.
he's a legend in the intermediate scene especially, but in Worms in general. But I should probably list a few accomplishments. So like in the normal no noob scheme, he has won just like countless playoffs, countless in the top of the season countless times. Like I'm looking at the history here, like season 7, he was the playoff winner. Season 1, he was the ladder winner. Season 8, he was the ladder winner. Season 10 and 11, and sorry, season 9, 10, and 11, won all those playoffs. And then you came back into the normal
After
no
how
noobs
long?
league.
I think it was a 2 years break, 1 year break, or something like that.
Yeah, but then 2021, you came back. You won 2 seasons of the playoffs there. So basically, you can win them anytime you feel like it, anytime you want to. You're not, you haven't disappeared to Paris. Uh, anytime you got the time. So this is just a little background. So Dario is he's many people consider him like the GOAT of intermediate.
Yes.
So glad to have you with us.
Yes, and also just adding to that, the GOAT of intermediate. Such a GOAT, he has also provided us over the years with some very, very interesting and useful tutorials, which have actually helped some of the players who are now top players hone their skills. So just like we had with Dead Code last week, on the top left section of the screen, we're going to play 5 of Dario's tutorials silently in the background. However, you can watch them in their full glory over on his YouTube link, and we will share that during the stream. But Mablack, take it away with the first question.
Okay. All right. We're just gonna grill you with some light questions. So first off, how many worms have you killed?
How many worms have I killed? Hard to say. You are going to kill 8 worms every round, and
Okay.
I've played for so long, for so much time. That do I need to make an estimate? 3,000 at least.
3,000. Okay. 3,000. So yeah. I'm gonna say it's more like if we were to add up your games on ONL, I'm gonna go with like I would say 10,000 maybe, but I don't know. I think that number, like if you opened up your like team file, I think you can actually see a count. But all of us like we all like reinstall our games so much. It's just
Eventually,
you have to go with your gut feeling on this. So
I used to keep those files from the game just
Mhm.
so that I could keep the stats of my team going on,
Oh
because I first made the team Algunos that I was using it my whole career, since we all most of us kind of started playing Worms with your cousins or your friends,
yeah.
and I had my team back then, and I used to save that file and
Ah,
keep it on different installations just so that I could keep my team going on and on.
I wished I could have done that, but I wasn't that smart.
No, that's a good move. I think like there is a weird tendency for like a lot of us old players have literally used the same team for like 10 to 20 years.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is, because it's like the game is about customization. You can make any team you want, but it's like you get used to a certain team. It gets weird to like see something else. And also you're just like,
a player's team is very personal. I think most people
yeah.
have got that classic team name. Is there not
right, like you
a-
wouldn't, like you wouldn't
It-
change your name. So why would
No,
you
it
change your
becomes
team name?
part of your identity,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part yeah,
who you are.
exactly.
And it's not only that, at least in intermediate and in elite and other games like that, the Worms order, it's something that you have stored on the backside of your head, and you don't even think about it, and you're using it all the time. So at least for me, it was going to be always counterproductive to change my team.
It's
Right.
actually
There's the worm. Yeah,
So-
there's a
sorry.
warm order aspect.
It's one of those things you guys talking about that makes me think, like, I don't know any other games where they play at, like, we are not actually professionals, but when we play, I do believe we sort of play
we
at
have
that level.
won prize
Yeah.
monies.
Yeah.
So
but I do believe
sounds like
that
a pro.
I do believe that our skill level is up there. But the weird thing is, if you play, I don't know any other games where you get to customize the name of the characters or the players that you control. Like, you know, I don't know any
But
other
in
game.
Warhammer,
Like if
you do paint your figurines in Warhammer, don't you?
can you make your own names
never
in that?
played
We,
it.
we need Chicken for this.
I don't know.
He's a Warhammer player. Is it
Yeah,
Warhammer
gotta ask
Blood Bowl?
Chicken. Yes. I was saying, yeah. So like, yeah, Chicken 23. He's into like Warhammer Blood Bowl. It's so weird. Like I mentioned earlier, it would be like if we played like a tabletop version of Worms, where we just have like worms on a board, just like moving them, which would be fun actually. But and I think Team 17 actually made, like, they said something about a Worms board game. I don't know if that panned out. Like I think it was a Kickstarter maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know if they actually made that, but they probably shouldn't.
Yeah. Right, Dario, when did you start playing the game? And did you start with Worms 2, Worms Armageddon, or Worms World Party?
I remember that my first approach to the game was during Christmas, and it was Worms Armageddon actually. One of my cousins got the game, I think maybe as a present or something. Of course, pirated because it's Argentina. And I guess we spent the whole evening until very late in the night playing that with my cousins. And then I got a copy and I took it home and started playing it. And after a while, I think I stopped playing it. And then after a while, I got a Worms World Party, and that's when I first went online. I think I had been playing Worms World Party for maybe 2 or 3 months when I found out about CWT that was being hosted in Worms World Party back then when it started.
Yeah.
And I remember joining that with Mr. T Penguin. That's the guy I remember the most. Joined that, and I think I didn't even get to the quarterfinals. I didn't even get to the playoffs. And I think that was the thing that triggered me into saying, I'm going to beat this shit. So I started playing a lot. That's when I met Sir Gorash. I don't think many of you know about Sir Gorash, but he was a very skilled player from Buenos Aires. And we started training and we started playing a lot. And that's when we founded the NNM clan. That's where everything started, and we started getting good. And the next year I got to quarterfinals, and I remember losing to a player called Goku. He was from Poland in quarterfinals. And then the next year, I think was still being hosted in Worms World Party or maybe Armageddon, or was it mixed? I can't remember. That's when I won my first CWT. And after that, there was the Indian clan page. We founded the league. I started playing on CWT a lot, and that's more or less it. But which year was it? I can't really remember. Maybe something like 2006, 2007. I mean, if you have the CWT site open, you can check
The older we get, the harder it is to recall the past.
Yeah.
We actually, unfortunately, we cannot check CWT because CWT is currently down. It's not being hosted at that website anymore. I do believe that St. Jimmy and Coridex have a copy of the code or something. They've got a copy of it in its last present state. But unfortunately right now CWT is not up, but we're hoping that it does come back for September, even if it's hosted somewhere else.
Yeah.
And is Semke still in charge of that?
He was. I think he's looking for someone else to host it now.
Yeah.
So
Could
yeah,
be
we
me.
need to wait
I don't
and
know.
see.
I don't really know much about hosting sites, but I could at least I could pay in some money. I'd be down with that. But for people who don't know, Crespo, so CWT is Crespo's Worms tournament, and yeah, it has a long history of being the most prestigious of Worms tournaments, which to some extent that was self-fulfilling hype. It's like it started being talked about that way, and like because it was talked about that way, it just became like a really prestigious tournament. And also the fact that like some of the best players are playing in it, like Dario. And yeah, Mr. T Penguin is also like these are some early names, and these players were like always good. Sir Gorash, Mr. T Penguin. I remember playing him at one of the CWTs, and I was like, wow, this guy is like really good. He's actually giving me a run for my money. And like I didn't really see him play before, but like he had just played many years prior.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, like the whole history of intermediate. So like when you first started, so like was intermediate like was it did you see many other people playing? Was it just a really, really small group on like Worms World Party?
Oh, I can't remember like the community in Worms World Party, but remember that when we started moving to Worms Armageddon, we were really looked down on us a lot, and you know that, Cody. People looked
Oh
down
yeah.
on us a lot
Yeah.
because we were coming from Worms World Party, so we were Worms World Party noobs, and we were also normal noobs. So, back then it was mostly about roping, elite, and BNG, like the three goal schemes. And playing normal games was for noobs, so we kind of were noobs for the rest of the
It's
community. And it was a real struggle at the beginning, but I think that was kind of one of our strong points, because since it was seen as a noob scheme, we will be capturing like most of the newcomers to Worms. So if someone new started play Worms, they will first get in touch with our community.
see
And I
Dario.
That's
think
really
that's how
yeah.
we managed to grow
It's
quite
I like
quite fast.
you've sort of effectively just told us how you came up with the name NNN, and
We were elitist pricks back then.
it's more
Oh,
that you said we came over from Worms World Party, and Worms Armageddon players saw us as noobs, and they saw us as normal noobs, and we said no, we're not normal noobs. So that's how you came up with NNN. It sounds like you were telling that story.
yeah, it was kind of like that, but we were also like very elitist. It was a very elitist clan, and we wanted our clan to be composed only of the best normal players, and we had tryouts and everything like that. Well, it's nowadays I see that kind of a shitty. It was a very shitty approach, honestly.
Yeah,
But well, we were assholes back then. Maybe we're
it's
less of an
fine.
asshole
It's like
now.
I think to some extent most of us were like teenagers when we like started some of our clans and stuff.
Yeah.
And so like we were kind of the same in Death Touch DT. It's just like we kind of just went for like the best players, but like I kind of see like it doesn't really matter that much now. It's just like you can just find people that you want to hang out with, play with them. It's not going to matter that much. But I mean, unless you're like a South Korean like pro esports team, it's not that big a deal. So
Yeah.
I mean, but that is really interesting that it's like, yeah, you can take, if normal. So if people don't know, intermediate and normal, those just refer to the same scheme, just like the standard scheme you start with when you open up Worms Armageddon.
Yeah, it's like
But
how we used to call a roper proper back in the day.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like that is super interesting though. Like if a scheme is viewed as a newbie scheme, then capitalize on that. Get a bunch of people to play it, and then maybe it will become something like more. And that is to some extent what happened with normal. But um, yeah, like, did you feel like when you first started playing intermediate, could you see like how deep the scheme was going to become? Could you see like the strategy that was going to develop?
Thing is that I specialized in intermediate, in normal, even before I knew there were other ways of playing it, because I was just playing that and hosting normal games without knowing those were actually specialized part of Worms. So I only learned about roping and BNG and all those very specialized forms of playing after we moved on to Worms Armageddon. I wasn't really aware of that when playing in Worms World Party. So it's not that I chose to specialize into that. I was just doing that without knowing.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So it was more about like you just really enjoyed that scheme, and it was like just seemed like it fit for you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and only after, I mean, after having played in CWT, and we already knew it was, I mean, we didn't have like a point of comparison between Norman and the other schemes until I started trying out the other schemes. And only then is that I learned that it had like a special strategic depth in it. And even while playing Elite, I mean, I think that the first thing I tried to play in a professional level, to say it in a way, was the Elite scheme. I can't remember if it was the TUS site or where, but I do remember being surprised by some moves and some Elite, and also having other people being surprised by the things we were doing from intermediate and applying those things in Elite.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, you're so aggressive, and why you are using cows in Elite? What the fuck's that? And
Yeah.
it was quite of like a cultural shock, and it was a shock for both of us because we had been working in intermediate for quite a long time, and then from the rest of the Worms community. So it was kind of shock, and that's when we started realizing how deep it was. Because of course, from the outside, it was yeah, you have 8 worms. This is for noobs. There's no strategy behind it. It's all about lag and positioning. And from time to time, we started to realize that it wasn't that much luck, and it was a lot about strategy. And I guess something similar happened to Team 17 scheme. It's full of crates. It's only about luck. But then when you see someone consistently winning every season, okay, it's impossible
can't be
that this
luck, right?
person is just lucky. And
It's
I think
like,
that was
yeah,
one of the things that was one of my arguments back then. Okay, if this is all about luck, then come on and beat me. Come on, do
yeah,
it.
right. It's
It's like
like,
Arnold Schwarzenegger to the Predator. Come on, do it.
Bring it.
yeah,
Kill me now.
show me the luck. It's yeah, it's like there's professional poker players. It's like, you can have things that involve luck, but that you can still get crazy good at.
Yeah.
So that's one of the complaints some people had about intermediate, that like, okay, the positions are random, but I mean, you have 8 worms. So it's like, it's not like all 8 worms are going to be placed, next to the water. You might have a couple, and then you got to figure out like what to do in those situations. Leads to just like infinite numbers of possible situations. And it's almost like the worm count is one of the things that like makes it so strategic, because like most schemes, people did not play with 8 worms. There were like no other schemes. So like just by bumping up the worm count, uh this scheme intermediate, which I mean, no one was really playing it in like the main leagues. It was played like sort of like, in the underground, I guess. And yeah, just by doing that, it transformed the scheme, I think, from something that was like people didn't pay much attention to it to something that's like really, really crazy strategic. And there's still like not many schemes that are on that level. Like you could say there aren't any schemes that are on that level. I would say maybe Chaos is up there. Island Team 17 is like pretty strategic too, but yeah, for me, Intermediate is still like one of the most strategic.
And in fact, I think that I can't remember the first times I played against you, Mablak, but I think that was kind of the breaking point of intermediate becoming like an accepted scheme, because after, okay, it's fucking Mavlak and he's playing it and he's saying it's good, then I think that was the point where people started accepting it more. Because even though we were consistently beating all the top players like Darks and Ropa and all of them, they were still putting up a lot of resistance, but you didn't, and you started learning to play it, and that's when you convinced a lot of people that okay, it was good. And I also remember that there was this breaking point. I think it was in the TWS side, and there was this like style competition, like show-off competition, that you were
Like
supposed to
roping?
make a
Yeah.
Oh, or
short
Yeah.
video.
best move?
It was like freestyle. Do
Yeah.
something with worms and show us some moves. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did this video with Holy Hand Grenade and many things and Kamikaze, in which I showcased tricks we were using in intermediate
Yeah.
hits, because that's when I got to show the kind of things you can do in intermediate. And that's the other thing people used to say it was luck. You know, when you will put a mine hat on a worm and send it exactly where you wanted him to go, and
Yeah.
people say, "Oh, that was just luck." No, it wasn't luck. It was a lot of training and knowing exactly what you were doing. And with that video, I think that we managed to showcase that no, the moves are not about luck. It's because we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That actually surprised me because I was one of those people years and years ago that obviously I knew there was a tremendous amount of skill to the game, but I wasn't aware that there was a pixel perfect way to use all those weapons. And then even further than that, you've got like sub-pixel things as well. But yeah, I was surprised, but pleasantly surprised when I found out about that, because it made me realise that yeah, these people are actually doing things that's the outcome that they were actually trying to achieve, and they managed to do that through practice and implementation.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah,
if
Dario,
you have
who,
easy
like-
access to that in showcase video, maybe it will be nice to show it. That to his competition. I don't remember the name. It was something like style or best 2 minutes or something like that. Do you
It
recall
might have been like best
Something
move contest.
showcase, yeah.
Best move contest.
Showcase?
Yes,
Was it-
I think it was best move contest. If it's still on 2 sides, maybe it's nice to show it.
There'll be a record of it. We do have sort of records of these things. What question are we on now, Ma Black? Because I think we've asked some of these,
Let's go on
but
with the interview.
not word for word. But I think we've covered like the first few. What are we on?
I guess number 5.
All right, on you go then.
Oh yeah. Okay. Did you have any experience in strategy games before Worms, or did
Oh. Is that Discord having a little bit of a... That's not me. Everything
Okay.
seems to be... Hold on, because you guys have sort of at your back.
Okay.
Yeah,
Could you
I'm
just
back, I'm
just repeat the question, please, because it cut out there before you got the chance to say
Oh
it.
yeah. Oh yeah, so Dario, did you have any experience in strategy games before Worms, or did Worms kind of bring it out in you?
No, I've always been into strategy games. I mean, I think that my first game was Age of Empires, and then it was Warcraft. And, well, those were the 2 games before that I played seriously before Worms were Age of Empires and Warcraft. A different kind of strategy. It's real-time strategy.
Ah, so Discord is
More
having
like
some issues
chess
tonight.
in some way.
Sorry, Dario, you were saying about strategy games and then it sort
Okay.
of lagged again, sorry.
Yeah. Do you think it's my connection or what?
I don't know, because it's happening to Mablack as well, but it's something to do with the connection we have on Discord. But it's okay for the most part. You were saying about the other games, and you said Age of Empires, and then it sort of lagged after that.
Exactly. Yeah. So my first like 2 serious games were Age of Empires and Warcraft 3 actually. So my background has always been strategy games, and wherever I choose a game, I usually end up choosing strategy games. So I guess it's my thing. And in fact, something that has been kind of a constant in all kind of games, even in in RPGs or the kind of games is that I always choose the more strategical approach to it. I like to plan things, and this thing that I did in normal, that is to find little tricks that give you an edge over other things. I end up doing the same thing in every game. I
Yeah.
kind of like to finding the glitches, if you want to say it in a way, and use it in a strategical way. So I guess that's just my thing. And also I suck at reflex games. I've always been pretty bad at roping. I can do roping when it comes to normal games, but when it comes to actual rope games, I'm terrible at it.
Yeah, so like you're kind of known as like a scientist of Worms Armageddon. Like you've discovered all these little mechanics and stuff about the
Yeah.
game. It really is kind of an application of the scientific method. Like I think I would say you kind of taught me and a lot of other wormers that if we want to test something, we can just go into the game and just like test it. Just like pick a weapon, see what it does in these different situations. And that's like a really important thing for like speed running. It's an important thing for like getting good at any game. Like you don't have to be like, you know, crazy smart. You just have to like, you know, test repeatedly like different situations
Yeah.
and see like what the real mechanics are in the same way that you would like, I don't know, test something in real life.
We had this conversation with Dario and Chuvash actually a couple of years ago. I don't know if you remember when Dario, yourself, Chuvash, and I were testing out different layouts for the stream for this channel a couple of years ago for CWT. And yeah, we were talking about that, like it's players like Mablak, Dario, Chuvash, and others. It's like you go the extra mile. Like some people are really good, but they'll never reach that, or it's not likely that they'll reach that same level, and it's because of the approach of going into the game and playing it offline, figuring out, like, let's just say you're playing a league game and a move happened and you're like, I think I could do that better, or you get an idea and you go offline and you try to recreate that scenario and you test various things. There's not a lot of people who actually do that anymore. It's more they get their experience from online games only. They don't practice offline. And yeah, it's nice to see that scientist sort of approach from yourself, Dario, making the tutorials and finding out the deeper mechanics that many of us would be completely unaware of without guys like you doing that.
I think was one of the things I enjoyed the most about this game. I remember that we will use to watch Vitor playing, and Vitor was a very skilled player, and he will know a lot of tricks and use it on you, and you will be really frustrated because you didn't know what the fuck was happening and how the fuck he did that. But and that back then with Zero Rush, we both had kind of the same approach. We will see Vitor beating the shit out of us with one of those tricks, and then we will go offline and say, okay, how did he do it? And we will try over and over again until we manage to do it. And it was always between us, we will teach each other what we learned from him and say, okay, he did this trick with the cluster bomb because you need to put it under the worm, make it jump or something like that. And that's how we had this synergy about learning about the game and then teaching it to other people. Instead, there were players like Vitor, and he will never people to know his tricks.
Yeah.
And in the
Bit of a
clan, we want
gatekeeper.
everyone to know our tricks. Okay,
Yeah.
this is a trick, and this is how you do it. And
Yeah.
it was not completely a selfless thing. I
Yeah.
mean, because on one side, you wanted people to learn and to get better.
Yeah.
But on
Yeah.
the other side, it was kind of nice to boast about, okay, this
Yeah.
thing I'm doing, it's not luck. I'm doing it on purpose, and this is how I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So it was not completely selfless.
Yeah. You're
Yeah,
teaching
but-
people how to be good while showing them that you're
Yeah.
good and how to be good. It's a
Yeah.
nice feeling to be able to pass on your
Nice
skills.
feeling. It's a nice feeling.
Yeah, it's definitely a case of like you can give a man a fish or you can teach a man to fish. I feel like you definitely like taught a lot of us how to fish, and like yeah, because it's like now it's I feel like okay, if I see something new, I can just like test it out and actually like try to master it. And there's still like new things we find every now and then, like I don't know, shooting getting next to a worm and like shooting in it with a bazooka to like blast it in a certain way, which is kind of
Yeah.
annoying and hard. But like, yeah, maybe we should talk about Bytor for a second. So Bytor was kind of a mysterious.
Influence.
He was a huge influence on Normal as a scheme, and maybe WormNET as a whole. But he's a very strange and mysterious figure, I would say. Like he would just pop on. He'd host a big game that said like sometimes it would just say like normal, no noobs, or like
Exactly.
and
That
he would
was.
you join the game and he says pro question mark and then
Yeah.
and I don't know what the response to that is, but I would either say nothing or like or I would say yes dude, we've played like 100 times, you know who I am.
The funny thing about
So-
Biter that I remember is he'll kick you from the game if you're a noob, but if you start beating him in the game, he just quits.
Yeah.
I just found that
was
amusing.
Bytor.
It was
I thought he will get really pissed off whenever you beat him, and he will get really pissed off whenever he beat you. So the outcome with Vitor was him getting pissed off no matter what. But I think he himself alone was probably more of an influence in the scheme and in the growth of the scheme than the whole clan, because he was always online, always hosting, and yeah, he was a asshole.
he was
Asshole.
such a dick, but
But
we all kind of respect him, I guess.
everyone had the chance to play the scheme and to see a very skilled player playing it, thanks to him, because it was him doing that constantly.
Yeah. So yeah, he was like a really good player. And also like the rumor, I don't know if it was confirmed, but he like passed away from COVID or something.
Yeah. I
So-
don't remember it was COVID, but he passed away a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, so rest in peace. But yeah, he was a great player, and I think the fact that he kind of goaded people on, like, you know, I take a really long turn, he types ZZZZZ in chat, and like he would definitely make people mad, and
Yeah.
but that was a source of inspiration also. He goaded us on and like made us want to beat him. So there's something to be said for that approach. Like I would never do that to other players, but I can't deny the fact that him doing that to us kind of made us want to beat him and get better.
He's almost like he's the angelic villain, like the villain that everybody sort of does have respect for, and the villain that does actually make other people better players and stuff. You've got a reason to beat them, you know?
Exactly. I think that our first
But
goal as
disclaimer, I don't
players-
think... sorry, a disclaimer, I don't think Biter was a bad person or a villain. It's just, you know...
No,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
get that. But I think even before wanting to win CWT, the first thing we wanted to do was to even beat Bytor in one round. It was like, we need to beat Bytor in one round. That was our goal as newcomers, at least in Worm's War Party. So he was like the fire under your ass, telling you to, okay, you need to learn the trick, you need to learn how to do it, you need to beat Bytor. And I remember that he started becoming friendly towards us when we started getting better and beating him. And
Mhm.
then he became an asshole again, but it was... yeah, Biter was probably the biggest influence in most, at least in me and in CWA and some of the new players back then.
Yeah. It's interesting because that ties into the next question as well, like... Because the next question, you've said, like, Biter was a huge influence, and yeah, who were some of your first Worms influences, including Biter, of course?
Mr. T Penguin, obviously, because he wasn't only so much better than me, He will also was like very caring, very nurturing, and he will try to help you get better and play with you and train. And he was very friendly, and that was really really nice. So I guess it's Mr. T Penguin, and of course Crespo. Even though by the time I started getting better, Crespo was already like he wasn't playing Worms that much already. Even though he will keep hosting the tournament, he wasn't really playing it. And then of course, Rush. In Silk Wars, it wasn't influence, but more of a companion. You know, like this buddy with whom you start playing and you start getting better, and you train together. And of course, there's some degree of rivalry. And we founded this clan together. So I will say that Steel Warriors is probably the biggest influence in my warming career, if you can say it's a career.
It's interesting
it's
the way
really- yeah.
I like the way that you speak about these guys. Like the way you talk about Mr. T Penguin and the comments in the chat as well. KRD.
I'm not reading the chat. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
I was about to say it's just that you saying about Mr. T Penguin just being such a good guy and a great friend, and KRD and Crespo there adding that, yeah, like heart comments, really nice guy. Reminds me like the one of the players I looked up to when I was younger was Link. I don't know if anybody remembers Link, but just the way you spoke about Mr. T Penguin is kind of how I felt about Link, who was a Norwegian roper back early like year 2000. But yeah, it's that's why another thing I really like about these podcasts is hearing the stories and then their stories reminding you of your own stories. But it's nice to talk about our influences and remember where we came from and who we met on our path to being part of the community. It's just really good.
Yeah, it's really interesting, like, because, like, in every game, somebody has to, like, be the first person to really, like, take it to the next level. And this is kind of the genesis, honestly, because, like, you know, Dario is, like, your top tier, and, like, you learn from, like, Sir Gorash, Bytor to some extent, Mr. T Penguin, and, like, I don't know, I took a more, like, for intermediate, I took a more circuitous route of, like, I just learned all the other schemes first, and then then I like it was a lot easier for me to like learn some crucial stuff from like you. I guess I would say I learned from Bytor to some extent, or I learned what not to do, and and just diving into once the normal league, normalnonoobs.com, if anyone wants to check out the league. I think diving into that also, it's going to make you better, but it's so much easier to be better now that you have like a big pool of players to play against. It was a lot harder, like I'm sure like back then, like it was because things were like just getting rolling with intermediate. It's crazy to see like how established it is now, like how high level the scheme is.
Well, yeah, I think that the things that it was pushing me and other players to get better, even I mean, if you take maybe 3 of us back then, there was nobody else better than the 3 of us, and we still had this urge to increase our skill level, just to show people outside the normal community that was a great scheme. That was one of our clan goals. In fact, if you see this is kind of embarrassing now, but there was this Normal Noobs Clans manifesto where we had some goals as a clan, and one of them was to show people outside the normal community that it was a great scheme, and it was a scheme where you could invest a lot of skill and a lot of strategy. So even though there was nobody else really to beat, there was no longer a Bytor. We will still try to learn new tricks and learn new mechanics and improve that. And yeah, so I don't know where this was coming from, but anyway.
Yeah, it's like it's a motivating force.
It's interesting when you think of that, like when Mablack was talking about Dario learning from Sir Gorash and Baitor and stuff, and it's interesting because when you see a new player come along, such as Dario, who takes things to the next level, it's interesting to actually learn more about their background and all their other influences, because it's like they come into the game, they learn from who they're playing, and they're adding the sum of their life experience, whatever that may be, into their hobbies as well. So Dario is a bit of a scientist, the way he thinks about things, his job and stuff like that. He's very analytical. He's always been a very analytical player, and that is one of the strengths that shows through the most, in my opinion, which would be the analytical skills and the creative skills. And it's nice that that comes from a place of grabbing skills and experiences from other games and places in your life that also help you to problem solve in a strategic game like Worms. It's just fascinating to me when you hear these from different players.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that in my analytical side, it's something that just it's part of my personality. It's not that I took the analytical thing from my hobbies or my studies and applied it to Worms. It's that being analytical is something that I always do, and I do it in different things. And in fact, one of the yeah, and one of the things that I think I ended up realizing in Worms with the community is that it's not only the analytical nature I have, but it's also this teaching nature I have. Because after learning something, I always feel the urge to teach it, do the tutorials and do the gifts and do the forums and do the challenges and do these things. So it all came very naturally to me. So it was really, really nice, and it's something that I couldn't say grateful, but it's like I'm really glad that Worms made all of these like pop up and made myself realize, okay, this is the base of my personality, basically.
Yeah. It's like a good thing to I don't know. It's a good thing to practice because like you can apply it to like, I mean, for one, you could apply that same method to any other game, right? So I mean, like it's just something that's really good to have. But yeah, I've kind of become that same way myself. Like I didn't start off having any interest in strategic schemes, but then like seeing like elite, seeing intermediate, like for whatever reason, I was like, wait, this isn't so hard. You just have to like you just have to have a plan. You just have to like think things through, make a plan A, make a plan B. It's like it's not difficult. You just do it, and like you'll get decent at it.
So
Yeah.
did you originally come from roping or BNG or what? I thought you were originally an elite scheme player.
I pretty much came from roping. I mean, like my whole first 2 years of like on WormNET was like it was like 99% roping, but I would say like after the second year, then I started to get into like leagues like elite and stuff. So it took some effort, but then like once I started playing elite, I was like, okay, I see the appeal. But yeah, it
And
took longer for me.
and you're very good at the strategical side. So
Yeah, I don't know why. I like before that, I had never really played chess or anything like that, so I don't know. Um, but let's see, what's our next question? Oh, what do you personally feel is the most
You skipped
skillful
one.
scheme, and why is it intermediate?
of course it's going to be intermediate for me. Well, I think it's the well, it can be improved, but I think that it's one of the schemes that requires most skills because you have such large a range of weapons and utilities available, and there are many things you can do with most of them. But the thing is that in order for those weapons and those moves that you have with each weapon to be useful, in my case and in my style, it's that you don't only need to know you can do them, you need to be able to do them consistently. Because
Right.
you're probably going to get, maybe if you pick one specific move with one specific weapon, maybe you will get a chance to use that once every 100 rounds or something like that. And it's at that point where it's going to make the difference between winning or losing that round. So you need to know it, you need to remember it, and you need to be able to see when you can use it, and then you need to be able to pull that off in that specific moment. Because if you don't, you're going to lose the round. So I think that that being good at intermediate requires accumulating a whole lot of micro skills or very small things, and being aware of all of them all the time, and having, like, like the creativity or the eye to see, okay, I can use that now, and you need to do it. You cannot just try and miss it. You
Yeah,
actually need to do it and pull it off.
I sort of look at intermediate as you're a bit of a, what's it called, jack of all trades, as the word goes to put it. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you know what that, like, you probably have a similar saying in whatever country you're from, but over here in Britain,
Yeah.
a jack of all trades is like, you can do a bit
Master
of
of none.
this, you can do a bit of that. And in the building trades, it's like you can do a bit of carpentry, you can do a bit of electrician work, you can do a bit of labouring, you can do a bit of joinery, you can do a bit of everything. But you don't specialize in anything. It means you're sort of good across the board. I always see most intermediate players like that. Generally speaking, they're very competent at the game in general. But for more specialized schemes like time trial rope race, jetpack race, super sheep race, they can't really compete with the best, you know.
No.
But it's
But the thing is,
it is very, very impressive. One of the most impressive things to me, to see a balance of all those skills, like you say, like it's micromanagement of all those little details.
and the thing is that I think that there is no such thing as an useless skill in intermediate. Well, maybe there are a few. I mean, you can, for example, be the best BNG player, and eventually, if you pay enough attention, you will find a chance to use your absolutely honed to the best BNG skills, and may win you around eventually.
Yeah.
It's like you can be the best player in all different specialized schemes, and eventually you will find a use for all of your skills in intermediates.
Except for Mole Shopper. Sorry, Mole Shoppers. No.
Unless you use
Sorry,
Mole
we've got-
as a special weapon.
We've got to have the monthly ripping of Mole Shopper. Sorry.
Did Zalo get summoned into chat just now because I said Mole Shopper?
Mole Shopper is like it's like, I don't know if anybody's ever watched the Big Les show, but Mole Shopper is basically the Clarence of Worms Armageddon. But yeah,
It's our
anyway.
whipping boy.
So
Yeah.
It's a fun scheme.
the next question, Dario. Intermediate was a bit unknown and didn't make its way into some of the main Worms Armageddon leagues for many years. Why do you think it took so long?
I think it took so long because the mainstream schemes were BNG, roping, and maybe elite, which are schemes that can be very challenging and require a lot of skills, but the variety of skills you use for those schemes is very limited. When you are a pro at something, like let's say elite, you have your set of skills, you're very good at that, and then you go into intermediate, which requires a very large variety of skills. and you're probably going to be facing a player that your eyes and from your point of view is a noob, because you're seeing, for example, let's take only BNG. Your mind is set to think that BNG is the shit, it's the best thing, and that's fine.
Mhm.
You have the right to do it. It's perfectly acceptable. And then you see a normal player and noobs at BNG skills. I mean, compared to you, Komito, it's going to be okay. What the fuck is this guy?
To be
And
quite
then you
honest,
go into intermediate.
I have had my moments of being thoroughly impressed by you guys during the CWT games. Tita, especially, Lacoste and Sid. Those free
Sid's amazing.
those free implemented B&G skills really well in intermediate. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because it is something that I do see whenever I play elite games. I notice that people are aware of how good I can throw grenades if you're on top, or even in hides that are just in reach of bouncing a grenade in. And you do notice if you're playing against specific, it's like when you're playing this game, you're not always playing against the scheme. Your tactics are literally like, what is this person best at? What are they worst at? And that's one of the reasons why intermediate is so damn good. Is I sort of look at it as a rock, paper, scissors sometimes, where you've got, like, for example, there's always the classic trio of top 3 intermediate players, Dario, Chuvash, and Mablak, and you all excel at different things. So whenever any combination of watching you guys is always very, very interesting.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so if, for example, your definition of being skilled, or your view of being skilled is revolves around BNG, for example, and then you play an intermediate game against someone who you don't know, and you see him throw a grenade and be a complete noob at it, which is kind of expectable. But then what used to happen a lot, and I think to all of us intermediate players, is that we will have a game against someone who was already a good Worms player in BNG, roping, or elite, and we will pull a mine hat or a shotgun trick or a bloater trick or anything, and they will constantly say it was just luck. And I think that's where the resistance came from, because they will see our very honed skills as just luck. So they wouldn't acknowledge that we were skilled at our thing.
Do
They were
you
saying, okay,
Yeah.
you're lucky.
do you
You were lucky.
think do you think, Dario, because this ties into the same question, one of the things that helped people accept intermediate as more skill based is the moment you took out weapon crates dropping in the scheme? Do you think that had a big impact, or?
No, I don't think that had a big. Maybe it did have a big impact. I didn't think it had such a big impact. But I think one of the breaking points was this best move contest, showing, okay, this is not like we actually did it. Okay, in the best move contest, it was something like very calculated, and I couldn't pull it off in just one try. But maybe taking crates out did something, because Team 17 crate in intermediate, can potentially ruin your whole strategy. I mean, if you're planning so many moves ahead, and okay, this worm is going to be here and this other worm is going to be here, so I can reach that place, and then a holy hand grenade pops up in one crate and
Yeah.
ruins your round, it's going to be very frustrating, I guess.
Yeah.
So
It's good.
that's
It's
probably one of
good.
the things.
It's great in Team 17 and Shopper, because that's the whole point of the game. You know, and both players get a crate every turn. But the thing that frustrated me about, because it used to be in Elite, it was the same in Intermediate, and Ariel has that now as well, where it's not a crate every turn. It's like a rare crate once every maybe a random amount of turns, and one player. You know what I'm getting at. You've pretty much just said it yourself anyway.
Yeah. There was definitely, I think people did have a big old blind spot It's like you see this skill on display, but you just don't recognize it as skill because it's not roping, it's not BNG, it's not these things that we're used to.
Yeah.
So like I think a lot of us were maybe just a bit blind to the skill, like, and like maybe just like we didn't get enough people playing it right away. Everyone, like the typical scheme you would see on WormNET, you know, you'd see like shoppers, warmers, rope races, and I think it just needed a bigger player base like earlier on. Maybe it would have taken off like sooner, but I think around like the sort of like maybe like 2007 to 2010, it started to like grow kind of exponentially. People became like really aware of like the normal no noobs league, and I tried to bring as many people over as I could. I think like I got some clanmates interested, like Freeman maybe, but it was
he
hard. I
definitely
mean,
likes it. Yeah.
for these old school players, it was like hard to get anyone to ever change their ways because it's like
I
they
was like
got
that.
they got used to like ropers and like elite, and I don't know. I think a lot of people also kind of left the game around that time, like 2009-ish. I just remember that it was like I was finishing college around that, and so
It's also interesting you both mentioned that. Like I remember, I was like my like 90, like pretty much 100% of all my experience in Worms for the first 4 years, I think, was just roping. I could not stand anything else. I mean, I can't remember if I thought of it as being newbie or not. I don't think I would call people noobs, but I just wasn't interested, and I absolutely despised BNG especially. That was my least favourite scheme when I started playing this game, when I was a roper, and then it turned out that it became my favourite scheme, and the point is that, yeah, I didn't even really get interested in Intermediate itself until 2020. That's like 21 years into playing Worms Armageddon, and then it's like, oh, great. Now, when I started watching Intermediate and getting involved in CWT, it's kind of almost like a new chapter in my life began, because I got involved in so much more than just specialising in a single scheme at a time. And through that, we all together have founded these streams in the competitive community as a whole, and working together, it's great. So yeah, it's nice that you mentioned that. So I can definitely see that. I used to think of other schemes as not popular, but I think the good thing is, because it took so long to get going, its foundation was stronger, and it's going to be a scheme that never dies out now, you know? And opposite to that, Warmer, I think, was the most popular thing ever. And when I say ever, I mean the period of time that Warmer was popular, it had more people wanting to be the best and being at that level of top skill than anything else I've ever seen. But it wasn't very long lived. It only lasted about 3 or 4 years, really, and then everybody started playing all these other schemes, like more actual league schemes, because Warmer wasn't really a competitive scheme unless you had people judging it, you know?
yeah, it wasn't really. I mean, ultimately, like roping, it's not like the essence of Worms. Like,
Yeah.
I do think it's one of the most amazing mechanics ever. But honestly, I mean, you could create your own game that's just a roping game, and people have kind of done that with games like Create Before Attack, which you can just play in your browser, like createbeforeattack.com. But well, I think those, yeah, it's like I did start like doing some roping tutorials, partly in the hopes that like even if roping doesn't like have a resurgence on Worms, maybe some other game will use the exact same mechanics in the future, and people will look at that shit. But anyway, we could just go on to the next question, I think. What? Yeah. Oh, let's see. I think we can skip one of the. So yeah, I guess. So yeah, many people would say that you're the goat of intermediate. Do you feel like there's still things to learn in the scheme, or do you feel like you've totally mastered it. Like, is there anything you could personally still learn? Do you feel like you got it all?
No, not at all. I'm sure there are still tricks to be learned that I'm completely unaware of, because from time to time, maybe at least the last thing I can recall was this player from Uruguay. Can't remember his nickname, but he showed me a move that it's probably impossible to apply. Well, it's never impossible. You drop the ship, you jump, and you make the ship jump on your worm's head so that
Oh,
it can
that, yeah.
reach a higher place.
Very
And that's
hard.
something I will have never imagined. And like that, I think they can keep coming up. But it's not only about the unlearned tricks, it's also about honing and getting better at the tricks we already know. Then, for example, I think that
True.
the last thing I was trying to hone and memorize were all the different taps for the bazooka shots according to the wind and things like. I mean, I don't think it's possible to learn all the tricks and be perfect at all of them. You can still get better at them every time.
Yeah.
I mean, and even when it comes to tricks, because I think of intermediate, if I can split the skills into two, there will be like the pixel-based schemes where you kind of count pixels, count notches, and you know the exact positioning. And from the exact positioning, you kind of know the dispersion of where the shot is going to fall or where the worm is going to fall. And there are the other like more natural skills like knocking, for example. And of course, you can always get better at knocking other worms. You can always get better at jetpacking. You can always get better at roping around complex caves. So no, I don't think I've mastered them all at all. And in fact, there are many things that I think I'm way below average. For example, moving around with rope, shooting grenades and things like that. So no, not at all, not at all. And I could still go on offline and try new things, and maybe something will come up for sure.
So yeah,
All right.
settle the debate once and for all, Dario. Which is better, pigeons or cows?
Better,
It's a tough one.
well,
This is a
it's a tough
thinker.
one. Can I say it depends and explain why it depends, or do
Uh-huh.
we need to make a?
Yeah,
No,
you can.
on you go.
Yeah, it's allowed. We'll allow it.
It depends. It depends on the map, of course. It depends and if you think in a single round, it depends a lot on the map, and if you think in a best of 3 or best of 5, it depends on the whole set of maps. That pigeons have like a higher skill cap. You can learn a lot of things about pigeons, and I started realizing about that once I started using pigeons, because I would say, okay, you can do this and you can do that. And if you set the pointer exactly at this distance and with this angle, the pigeon is going to do this arc and fall there. So the skill cap is a lot higher with pigeons.
True.
Uh, but in intermediate overall, if you're going to focus on islands and not so complex caves, I think cows have more power. But when it comes to complex caves, and you know what I think about this, complex caves and the also often sudden death with waterized, then pigeons are going to give you a very nice edge. So it depends on who you're playing. If you're going to be playing against Chevach, then go for pigeons because you're going to be playing in very complex caves.
Yeah.
And
True.
but
People.
then
Yeah.
if it's not intermediate, and if it's instead of intermediate, it's one of these modified schemes that try to increase the variety of weapons you are encouraged to use, then I think pigeons are better because you have more moves you can do with them, and you have more adaptability, and you can, for example, push a worm into mine and then finish it off with a pigeon without using a rope or anything else. So I think pigeons are more flexible when it's a normal scheme that to use more weapons.
Gotcha. I mean, I agree with most of that. I think like if you were to like look at a specific map, you could probably tell like if it was you could tell how complex a cave is and be like, okay, I guess pigeons are probably better here. So it is map dependent for sure.
I like that question because it does tie directly into the next question. Talking about cows versus pigeons, but I'll let it's Mablack's turn.
I did try to get rid of these cows versus pigeons with this 80 hit point scheme, and I think it worked quite nicely, except for the fact that we were never able to have this. You can use any team weapon, but only one of them implemented into the scheme, and we had to make a rule about it. Which making rules in the game is always troublesome.
Yeah, so that was exactly what we were gonna ask. So like you created a successor to intermediate called ADHP, or maybe
Yeah.
I don't remember if did you view it as a successor sort of,
No,
or just a different scheme.
a different scheme. I mean, I don't think
Did you?
it's an improvement. I don't
Oh, okay.
see it as an improvement because intermediate as it is, even with this trend to get into shotgun wars, well,
Yeah.
that's intermediate and that's very respectable. And even if shotgun wars can be boring to watch, there's a very deep strategical side that Chuvash has become a master of, and he's pretty much unbeatable in that. But since my original view of intermediate was this scheme that forces you to learn all the weapons and to learn a lot about all the weapons, started becoming dissatisfied with the strong trend towards. Even though I'm a strategical player, I thought
Yeah.
it was becoming too slow and shotgun strategic, and so I wanted to create a scheme that will force you to use more weapons and rely less on these 50 hit points and then 50 hit points again, and try to make it so that you could use more combination of weapons, combination of moves to kill one single worm. So that's and this scheme was actually on the work for a very long time. I remember in the early years of my worming career where we were starting to play with Silgoras and try different hit point combination and these different weapons availabilities, and eventually I ended up doing this thanks to Worms Armageddon on these 80 hit points, trying to make something a bit more dynamic. That I mean, for example, in standard intermediate, BNG skills are rarely ever going to be used because you have so many ropes, and since I mean the thing of intermediate is you can make many paths towards the same objective. So, for example, for BNG skills, you can dodge them completely in most scenarios.
Oh yeah.
Different way, say, okay, I've sucked BNG, so I'm going to use a block with a firebomb or something here, and wait 3 turns for the water rise, and then I'm going to shotgun. That's a very intermediate thing to do. And with these 8 hit points, I wanted players to I wanted the possible choices to be more balanced. Like, okay, you can do this, you can do that. They're both good options. Do whatever feels best to you.
Right. And
We had a few
ADHP.
tournaments and we
So
had some cash prizes, and I think that
yeah,
took off for a while.
yeah. Those. So yeah, it's like I can't remember how long ago it was now. Like maybe was it 2 or 3 years ago?
I think it was between 3 and 4 because the 4 years because the last time I played was probably 3 years ago.
Yeah,
Was it your
closer to
when
this.
the cup was?
There were several, right? We had a few.
We had pickups. Yep.
We had a couple of tournaments and then one cup. I'm just looking for that cup just now.
Yeah.
It was a few years
honestly,
ago. Though.
like, I think, yeah, so like ADHP, yeah, if people haven't played that, go out and play that scheme.
Yeah.
I would
July.
totally like to, I would still like to popularize that because I think it
And
does
host more
address.
tournaments. We can put
Yeah, I
July.
mean,
I volunteer
I
to
should.
put some cash prize, even though I'm probably not going to play in it, but I can put
Yeah.
in some cash for the price.
It'd be
Yeah,
cool because
there's.
it does at least address like some of the problems with intermediate and limited shotguns. I do feel like shotgun is just like it's because like in intermediate, sort of the problem where like we sometimes we see it a lot more in CWT, but it's like you can either go for like a slightly risky move that's gonna look cooler, be more interesting, pay off more, or you can just do a shotgun. And like shotgun, it works really well, assuming that your opponent is gonna make mistakes. So like, which I mean, a lot of people are, and a lot of us are just gonna make mistakes. I feel like it just I don't know at a super high like if we could all play the game like esports just play 24/7 sort of thing. I feel like shotgun might not be as powerful because like we would be making like less mistakes. You wouldn't be able to rely on that like safety as much, but either way, I feel like ADHP kind of addresses a lot of the
That
issues with shotgun.
that was exactly the main concept while trying to balance that team was so that the negative outcomes of missing a risky move wouldn't be so high as an intermediate, and the positive outcome of a risky move successfully will be a higher reward. So that it's just that, like, okay, you can still do shotgun, you can still do a safe move, but the reward of doing a risky move and doing it successfully is going to be a lot higher. Like trying to balance this risk versus reward thing with other weapons.
Yeah. Just to let you know, we've got about 18 minutes left
Yeah,
to
okay.
go. If there was one player you could bring back to the game, who would it be, Dario?
One player.
One player, one man, one shot, one chance.
I don't have to think a lot about it. It will definitely be Sirorash, because he was a very dear friend of mine. In fact, I traveled from Cordoba to Buenos Aires just to visit him and another guy.
Oh, cool.
Oh, nice.
But it will be Sirorash, not only because he's a dear friend. Well, I have no contact with him now, but he was a very dear friend, and he was very creative and very skilled and very motivated when it came to community things and making things work and making a web page and organizing tournament. So it will definitely be him, Sirorash. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to mention you can bring people back from the dead too if you want. You know, by tour. That's it. You know what? That's like
that will be like my second option, because but
that would be like a Stephen King movie. Like we bring him back, but then he becomes more powerful than we could ever imagine.
I was just
that would be
thinking.
great, because if I had to bring back Vitor, it will be just to have him as a, oh my god, this is horrible, but that's the reality. Because he's going to be this kind of bot constantly online on WormNET and constantly playing intermediates and making people hate him and wanting to beat him. And that's something that's always nice if you want to.
It's like, what's the
make a community
story?
more active.
What's that? I think it's Greek mythology or something. I can't remember the names, but it's the god or the son of a god who did something they weren't supposed to do. So their punishment was to get their guts eaten alive by a raven or something. Every day this would happen. And it sounds like that's sort of Baitor's punishment, that he's going to be forced to get beat by noobs over and over and over again.
No, poor guy. Come on, no. Let him be the one who beats noobs.
Yeah, that would be more productive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next question, my black.
What is your favorite Worms achievement from your whole career.
Favorite Worms achievements. Mm, I cannot think of a very specific achievement. I mean, some people say, well, wasn't the first time you won CWT your best or your favorite achievement? No, it wasn't. I mean, it was very important. In fact, it was Mr. T Penguin doing the post-tournament interview when he asked, okay, what do you feel about this? How do you feel about this? And I remember not feeling exactly as I thought I would feel. And I had this very cliche epiphany, very corny epiphany, where I thought, okay, the prize and winning this wasn't so important. The process of winning this was my favorite part. The
The
process
journey.
of the journey, exactly. And this
Yeah.
sounds like a self-help podcast, but
Yeah.
it was
Nah,
honestly my
you're
own
you're
experience.
100% right. It's like
Yeah.
though there's a saying that it's lonely at the top, but the
Yeah,
journey
because
to get there it's magical.
getting there was about being friends with Sir Goresh and John Meir. John Meir was an amazing player and a
Oh yeah.
very amazing person too. And becoming friends with them and doing this community and doing this work and working for our scheme and making it more well known. And it was all this process of learning and teaching and building a community that was the most rewarding part. So if there's something that I'm proud of, it's actually the whole process of building community stuff. And before CWT, it was the clan, and after CWT, it was after the first CWT, it was about getting other players like Mavlak and other very well-known warmers to know intermediate and after a long break and coming back, it was really nice to create this 80 hit point scheme and organizing the podcast and the tournament with you, Comito. So the most rewarding thing about all of this has been,
Aye,
this building community.
yeah, that was actually I think somebody said a question and it made me want to ask. It might have been KRD or Crespo. I wrote this down earlier.
Oh, yeah.
So you're talking about that,
Oh,
and it's
hold on.
like
I have one, like, if I have to think about favorite moments, it was, well, of course, if someone here doesn't know Dead Code is like, the programmer behind Worms, behind the updates, and he knows, if there's someone who knows a lot about what's happening behind the scenes in Worms, I mean, technically, it's Dead Code. And I remember having created one of my maps where I test things, and for some reason I managed to convince Dead Code to let him show him some things. And I showed him how the physical mask of the arrow moves after you shoot it, and he didn't know that. I think
ah,
that's probably my proudest moment, because I
Yeah.
showed Dead Code something about the physics of worms that he didn't know.
yeah, that I
Uh,
can, yeah, because and
Probably,
even more
Yeah.
impressive because Dead Code. I don't speak for the entire community, but I think most people who know Dead Code and actually know the depth of the game and what we're talking about know that he is such a perfectionist and he is so bloody damn good at what he does. For you to find something he didn't know about, that is impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
that's
really
got to
proud
feel
of that
good.
moment, yes. Yeah,
But
The
yeah,
arrow,
really
yeah.
good.
So like, yeah, Dario. So like, you studied the arrow mechanics of the game, and they are very wonky. So like, you have to stand in specific spots if you want to hit two worms, or
Yeah. The streams just Well, the stream
One-
was fine, but sorry, you just cut out after you started talking about that. If you could repeat that sentence, please, my black.
Oh yeah. So the arrow mechanics in the game are really wonky, and you have to stand in a certain spot if you want to hit 2 worms at once. Otherwise, you'll just hit like 1 worm.
Yeah.
It's basically like an arrow's length away from the worms, but it's closer if you're aiming down more. It's further away if you're aiming more straight. So it's like this was really hard to even like figure out. That's probably like one of the things you spent. I would imagine you spent a really long time having to figure that
I
out.
think that's probably the last thing I researched.
Mhm.
Research, because of course after playing intermediate and when you shoot a pile of worms with an arrow, sometimes you will shoot 1, sometimes you will shoot 2 worms. Okay, so what the fuck is going on here? And that's where it all started. Yep.
So yeah, I think it was either Crespo or KRD earlier that said, in the year 2004, I would have never imagined we would be sitting here talking about things from the past in this game. And also, along with that, I want to add a fact that you may or may not be aware of that you might actually be happy about, because you said that when you started playing intermediate, it was seen as, oh, you're noobs and stuff, but it's came a long way. And intermediate, as in CWT Grand Final, is the most watched stream on this channel. We had over 60 people watching, so I think that's... I don't know any other... Obviously, there are streams that have a lot more players. Like, we've seen streams with like thousands of players watching, but those are like big YouTubers. But yeah, for people being invested in an actual, really well organized competitive event, to have that many people watching and interested, and like 30 odd people talking in the chat, reminiscing, talking about the players. I mean, that's great, and it's got to feel good that the scheme you love the most has had that level of respect and recognition.
Yes, it does, and it's extremely rewarding, because it's like, you know, like a movie that has a nice ending where you start from the bottom and shunned by everyone.
Yeah.
And then so many years after that, there is a stream and people are watching the final of the scheme you love, and something that you know you were involved in the process of that scheme becoming something.
Yeah. Right,
Yeah,
we've got... Sorry, we've got 2 more questions. Did I ask that last one, or did you? No, you can ask anyway. The next one.
Okay.
We've got like 7 or 8 minutes left.
All right. All right. So from your masterful knowledge, can you share any advice for aspiring players looking to improve their skills?
In intermediate and normal games, I guess, because that's
Sure,
my
we can just say
thing.
normal.
to improve their skills, well, it takes a lot of practice. I mean, it's, at least for me, it was not just about going online and people first, because it's kind of, it's not easy to go online and just find someone to play with. You know, it's a very small community.
It's harder now.
But you, at least for me, it was like that. I also needed to go offline and train and repeat one move until I could pull it off consistently. And not only that, I mean, there's this, at least in intermediate skills, first you need to learn it, train it until you can pull it off consistently. And then after that, it comes like a whole stage where you need to have that move consciously on your mind until see that and where it can be applied. Because I remember this with the skunk, for example. I wasn't aware of many situations you can use skunk and how useful it can be until I learned how to use it, and until I forced myself to use it over and over again. Then, for example, I remember going playing with myself online, offline, and having like this personal task of saying, okay, I want to use the skunk, and just in a regular match against myself. Skunk in online games. Yep. Yeah. So playing offline against myself with one move I was practicing and trying to apply that move in every single turn, and it's only after that
But
it and
again,
see the chance to use it. So that's one of the key things to be good, at least at intermediate. And the other part is being really aware of the worms order and having some kind of long-term plan. I mean, you can be really like mechanically good and have very nice skill and very honed skills, but if you don't know how to connect what you're doing this turn with what you're going to do in the next one and what your opponent is going to do against you, then it's kind of useless. I mean, and I
right.
think the strategical part in intermediate is kind of important than the skills part, and that's why you can many times win a game using basically just shotgun because you are
Yeah,
planning
yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, the long-term planning really really important. So like worm select matters a lot. Like do you have any major advice on like the worm selects you use in your first like couple turns?
I don't think I have a rule, but I think that we all, in general, probably will always use one worm select in the first turn to, save one worm and potentially use another worm to kill an enemy and also save your own worm. That's
Right.
one of the things.
Yeah, two like I always feel like two worm selects super dangerous because then
Yeah,
your opponent just has to pile you once and you're out of
yeah.
worm selects. So like
One worm select to save a worm and worm in the same turn, then that's a good starter.
yeah.
Right, sorry to be rushing ahead here. I'm going to ask these two questions together, because it's a question from. I can't see who actually. Yeah. So, looking ahead, what do you hope to happen or have happened for the Worms Armageddon competitive scene and Worms in general? And also, Crespo is asking, how's life in Paris turning out?
Oh, Crespo. Well, life in Paris is very good. It's still quite challenging for me because even though I was good at worms, I'm not good at learning new languages. So French is very challenging for me. And Paris is quite a nice city, actually. It's lovely. I mean, you walk around and you accidentally bump into monuments like the Eiffel Tower and the Triumph Arch. It's like, wow, I'm here, really. And
Wow.
what will I like for the Worms community? Of course, I would like it to become popular again, but we all know that's kind of an impossible dream. I mean, it will really be really nice if all of a sudden people started liking Worms again, but we know that's not the gaming scheme nowadays in worldwide.
Yeah.
Interested in slow paced strategical and turn-based games, so it's kind of impossible to think of Worms becoming popular. But hold on, there are Excel World Tournaments, so why not
Right.
Worms World Tournaments again?
Yeah, I mean like what if, Team 17 leans hard into like the esports route and then they come out with a Worms game that's like fine-tuned. It's like Worms Armageddon.
Ah, keeps cutting out like that.
Even if Worms itself, like Armageddon, doesn't come back, maybe like a future kind of Worms like game will come back and like some of the stuff, some of the strategies that we've like figured out will like kind of apply.
I think that Team 17 has proved time and again that they are incapable of doing that.
Maybe another
And
company.
they are also incapable of releasing the control of the game to the community, which will make a much better, I think, that the community could make it a lot better than it is. With enough resources, of course, but, well, we all have our jobs and things.
Yeah, I'm thinking like it could be an actual Worms game, or it could be like just a Worms clone. But I do feel like at some point in the future we'll get more. We'll get something that's like actually like massively popular again.
Maybe,
And we see like
hopefully.
these we see like Worms clones pop up sometime. Like there was like T Worlds, there was Gunbound. There are
Yeah,
games that like had
Hedge Wars.
similarities.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Hedgewards, yeah. So like I think it's a matter of time. Eventually, we'll see something that is just pure intermediate. It's just called something else,
Yes.
and maybe it's with snails. Maybe it's with what else would be good? Seen
Snails
snails.
would be
We've seen. Oh yeah. We've seen frogs. I'm
I've
not sure
seen
what else.
hedgehogs.
Hedgehogs.
We've seen hedgehogs.
It's always an animal. I don't know. We might maybe just like a little blob or something that's like really simple to do, you know?
Yeah. And X-Rays is working on Websteria, which he's calling it, which is spiders. Have you not seen that one yet? He's been working on that for like 6-7 years or something. I don't know what stage it's in now, but sorry, I'm going off here because we're going to have to wrap things up. But one more quick question, Dario. What would bring you back to Worms Armageddon, if anything?
Money.
Money.
Right, you've heard
Everybody
that,
has a
folks.
price.
You've
If I
heard
can
that,
quit
folks.
my job, if I can quit my job and stop working, then I will definitely go back to the places that made me happy, and one of them will be Worms, obviously.
So send your donations to Dario in France at paypal.com. I'm only kidding. Don't send your money there because, yeah. But yeah, there are a lot more questions I'd love to ask you, but I'm afraid we've ran out of time for today. Thank you very, very much for being part of this special podcast, Dario. It's been great fun, very entertaining. Thank you for co-hosting as usual, my Black, and submitting more excellent content for everybody to watch. I hope you've all enjoyed today's podcast. It will be up on YouTube later on this evening or tomorrow, and as usual, my Black and myself will put together the individual sections, individual tutorials and stuff up on our YouTube pages later. So yeah, give my Black's YouTube channel a follow, give Dario's YouTube channel a follow. I'll put the link in the chat quickly for both of those, and yeah, I hope you all have a great week. So there is that channel. My Black's got a 1, hasn't it? Yes, my Black.
Yes, unfortunately.
So there is Dario's channel, and this is actually, I've went for my Black's.
In my channel, I think I have only 2 or 3 Worms videos in my channel, so it's not that.
Yeah, and there's my Black's video. But if you want to watch how you saw the tutorials at the top left of the screen, up there, you can watch those in full size. And there's extra information in the description for some of them as well. So if you want to support either of these great players, go and show your support on their channel, please. So yeah, once again, thank you, Dario, for all your contributions to the game and just for being an all-round great person. Same with you, my Black.
Thank you.
Yeah. While we have the stream, quick announcement: the next episode of the podcast has been decided. It will be the one and only Bloopy that we will be interviewing next month in May. So that will be a really, really, really old school interview, and it's going to be very, very interesting. So yeah, take care, everybody, and see you in the next one. Bye.
Peace out.
Bye.